today's day and age, you want a fun company to work with, or you want your company to just be, you want to show who you really are. And if you're a fun company and you come across fun on social media, you're going to attract fun employees.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've always thought about, is specifically with the Liger brand, is we're not a financial advisor. We're not a law firm, right? So would you really want to hire a boring marketing firm?
No, not at all. Absolutely not.
On today's episode of The Claw, I speak with Courtney Psinas. She is the OG of Opportunity at Liger Partners, and we talk about the other side of marketing, attracting the top talent to come to work for your company. Marketing isn't just about bringing in customers, it's also making sure that you bring in the right employees, that those employees understand the kind of business they're coming to, and maybe that you understand what type of employee you're hiring. So make sure you tune in today to The Claw to get tips on attracting top talent. Welcome to The Claw. I'm Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist of Liger Partners. I'm joined today by Courtney Psinas. She is the OG of Opportunity at Liger. She assists our clients with picking the right things for their marketing mix and determining, the right way to kind of go to market and approach it. And today we're going to talk about something that people don't really think about often as it relates to marketing. So what's our topic today?
So today we're going to talk about attracting top talent for your business. So obviously, that's a huge...
You just put up a job posting?
Yeah. I mean,
that's
you would think, right? That's the struggle. It's such a prevalent issue right now because everywhere you go, you see now hiring, and these businesses have all these empty positions, and you would think that it's easy to fill a job, and sometimes it is, but what it boils down to is filling that job with the right fit.
Got it. Okay. And so I get that. Now, this is the podcast it's the marketing podcast for
Indeed.
C-suite executives. It's not an HR podcast. So where does marketing play into this?
As much as April would like us to have a little HR podcast, it's not. It's marketing. And I think that is the issue, is that marketers and people that do marketing within the company, they don't think that they need to market to people who don't want their service or that aren't looking at their company. But an easy example is when you're applying for a job and you Google them, what's the first thing you pull up? You pull up their website, or you pull up their Facebook or their Instagram page. And so if you're not being cohesive on your external channels about who you are as a company and showing your company culture and showing behind the scenes, you're not attracting just your customer, you're attracting your future employees. So marketing actually has a lot to do with it.
Okay. And so talk to me, because you and I are not the same age.
Really?
What
year were you born?
You might be a little younger. And so thinking about attracting, younger talent into a company, because some of us have kind of the old school, hey, post it up on a job board, and then you can get people
Indeed.
to come in.
LinkedIn.
Right. Yeah, things like that.
Which are great.
Yeah.
And good opportunities. But it's a lot more than just a job title. It's a lot more than just a salary. When I'm looking for a job, I want to see, who am I going to be spending my day-to-day with? What is this company culture? And does that speak across your social media pages? So for example, when I came down to Georgia and I was looking for my, a new opportunity, I really regret not putting enough time into researching the company beforehand, because that can get you in a little bit of a pickle. Thankfully, it all worked out, and I found myself here. And I mean, we have a dang disco ball in the middle of our office, so right up my alley.
Right.
But I think that you need to take a step back when you're thinking about your company's marketing and say, what would a future employee benefit from seeing? Okay. What would they want to see across social?
Yeah, so you think about like job descriptions, and do you offer benefits, and what's the salary? So what are the other types of things or ways that I can get that message across to attract the right type of people?
Absolutely. It's a good question because, for example, we order like crumble cookies all the time, and we eat donuts all the time, and we have, a flexible work schedule. And sometimes after hours, we'll all go out and we'll have, drinks after work. And that's super important. And some people will view that as maybe not the most professional thing to execute, which I can see, but in today's day and age, you want a fun company to work with, or you want your company to just be, you want to show who you really are. And if you're a fun company and you come across fun on social media, you're going to attract fun employees.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've always thought about is specifically with the Liger brand is we're not a financial advisor. We're not a law firm, right? So would you really want to hire a boring marketing firm?
No, not at all. Absolutely not.
It'd be terrible. It's like, look at all of their people in suits running around. Like that's not our brand at all.
No. And I think that we do a lot at Liger, a lot of events. So we host a lot in the office. And when we put that in a newsletter or when we are advertising that on Facebook, it might not be the goal today to be like, I'm going to post this and I hope that some awesome project manager who sees it comes and applies. But, it's just that long-term goal of creating that consistent presence of being fun in the Liger culture that attracts those people.
Yeah, and one of the things that happened during the pandemic in particular is you saw a lot of companies who kind of, they stopped doing as much marketing. And honestly, some of those companies may have not survived the pandemic. Like if your social media posts, if you haven't been posting, how do I know that your company's even open?
Exactly.
Like, what are you even doing? Are you a place that I would want to work or apply to, or
Yep.
What's kind of left as it
Well,
relates to the
especially
business?
now, with COVID, there's so many scams out there, and that's kind
There
of
are.
yeah. Like on LinkedIn, I feel like so many people they're putting out so many job requests that as a job seeker, you almost have to like qualify and validate who you're interviewing with.
So tell me about these job scams. I don't know this.
Well, I have a great personal experience. So when I was looking for a job back in January, I got an interview with a law firm who shall remain nameless.
Yes, because we have good lawyers, but not that good.
Right, when you're going lawyer to lawyer. So I interviewed with this law firm, and when I Googled them, there wasn't a lot on social media. They had never posted.
Oh, wow.
They had, a Facebook page with no Facebook profile. And I was like, okay, they're hiring for marketing. I get it. The need is clearly there.
She walked in and she's like, you definitely need me.
You definitely need me to come help you. And then their website, super basic. So I get to the job interview. And granted, I'm new to the state, so I'm not judging too hard. But I pull up to this log cabin where this interview is being held. And I get there promptly a little early, and I go and I open the door, and all of a sudden the alarm goes off, and I'm like, oh no. And I walk in and nobody's there, and I'm like, okay, so things happen, mistakes happen. It ended up being this whole misunderstanding, but the point that I'm trying to make is you really have to spend time qualifying who you're taking into an interview process, because
Right.
it's your time is valuable too. So if I had maybe done a phone interview first or a Zoom interview first, I could have qualified it better than throwing myself into this hot mess of a situation. But and you see that now that people are hiring more. So on Indeed, there's a lot of fake jobs. The job descriptions aren't super detailed. The titles.
But why are they putting up fake jobs? Are they trying to just get people's personal information?
Well, it's like if I'm looking for a sales job,
Yeah.
you have to be really careful, because sometimes sales can be door-to-door sales.
Oh.
Sometimes sales can be 100% cold calling.
Right.
Then you have more business development. It's very, very baseline, and companies don't do a good job of really putting out what they're looking for.
Got it.
So the
Okay.
more specific you are, really the more qualified of a candidate you're going to get.
Yeah.
Because if I know that I'm worthy of a certain expectation, I'm going to spend more time, researching the company and learning about the company. And if there's not any information to learn or to research, I'm probably not going to want to work with you.
Yeah, and for me, sort of on the employer side of the shop, we put a lot of stuff out. I have there's a ton of stuff on me. So when I meet you for an interview, you should know who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not because I've got some ego and I'm really looking to see, did you research the job? Do you want to work here? Do you understand what we do? Those types of things, because we haven't made it a mystery, right?
Yeah.
And it is a way to vet a candidate.
Yes.
Is, what kind of research did they do? Do they know about the business? What kind of questions do they have? Like, do they just show up and they're like, hey, tell me about this job you have?
That's my favorite thing to ask somebody in an interview is, so can you tell me about the company? And you almost have to bite your tongue, because sometimes they'll just stare back at you and they're like, yeah, I saw you guys did marketing. And I'm like, okay, so you didn't look up anything, because that's pretty obvious.
Right.
But it's like, you should, on the candidate side, you should want to do research.
Yeah.
Because you should want to be able to fit in with who you're spending 40 plus hours a week with.
Well, they talk about, I saw an article about this recently, making a bad hire is bad,
mm-hmm.
right? Because it just is. But choosing to go to work for a company and it being a bad fit is just as bad.
Exactly.
You've disrupted your life, you've made this change, and now you got to go look for a job and you just left a job. So you want to be very careful in that space.
It's really time consuming in the beginning, but it's like we say, there's no such thing as emergency marketing.
Right.
There's no such thing as emergency hiring either, because if you put in the work and the effort, you're going to see that result, and you'll see that payoff.
So as you sort of think about it from your perspective of things you look at, so you said, you're looking at maybe social media and their website, and so are you looking for, an About Us page with pictures or core values? Or are you looking for what are some of the ways you're assessing?
Yeah, I think on a high level, I just want to see that you're there.
Right.
And that you're real, and that you have a location, and that I'm not going to, have the police show up and be like, oh, did you set an alarm off? Yeah.
Job interviews that end with a police interrogation are never
exactly.
good job interviews, right?
Yeah, do your research. So one, just having a presence, establishing a presence. And I think the more consistent you are, the more that I know that you value how the world perceives you, and you're worried about your perception, which is good. A company should be, conscious of that. And I think that posting behind the scenes content, I personally love. I try to share on my personal social media some of the fun things that we do, at Liger. So I'm sharing the fact that we order, dessert in when we're all hangry, and that when we sign a deal, we turn the disco ball on and we dance, because your internal team sharing out that content, that just broadens your reach of who's seeing your stuff. And then people, the next time someone's looking for a job, they'll be like, hey, I remember, coming across that one post and there was a dance party at this office. I'd love to work there.
Yeah, nice. So we're going to go to commercial break, and when we get back, I want to talk a little bit about how maybe you combat the bad. So there's a site called Glassdoor, and people put up reviews. So maybe some tips and tricks we could talk a little bit about, so maybe my presence isn't so great, and people have said some things like
how to kind of dig yourself back out of that hole.
So we'll be back in just a second. You're listening to The Claw, which is the marketing podcast for C-suite executives. I'm Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist. I am joined today by Courtney Psinas. She is the OG of Opportunity at Liger Partners, which is now her new official title. We'll be back in just a second.
Thanks so much for watching The Claw podcast. We'll be back after this short break.
When I first met the Unicorn Marketing Agency, everything was rainbows and, well, unicorns. They promised overnight marketing results for my business, leads my sales team couldn't keep up with. Once I signed up with them, they didn't even hold up any of their promises, even after months. And the only thing they gave me were excuses. After a while, communication with them became spotty and they were hard to get a hold of. Eventually, they stopped responding altogether. Overall, I lost a total of about $23,000 over a 4-month period, and I lost a lot of valuable time and energy.
And we're back. You're listening to The Claw, which is the marketing podcast for C-suite executives. I am Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist at Liger Partners. I'm talking today with Courtney Psinas. She is the OG of opportunity. So she's one of the people who helps our customers understand what they should do next within their marketing mix. And we talked in the first segment about, as an employee, what am I looking for in a company and what should I be doing from a company perspective to attract the right type of talent. So, sometimes bad things happen. So you have an employee who didn't have a great experience, got fired for a reason, whatever, and they may go out and put a bad review on Glassdoor or Google or somewhere else. And so if I'm a company and I have that happen, like what are some tips and tricks that you could give me to help with that?
Well, the bad is inevitable. It's if you're a crappy company and you're producing crappy employees, like it's going to happen. You're going to get bad reviews. And I don't want to discount the credibility of Glassdoor because I think that's been helpful for a lot of people, and it's a great resource to hone in as a candidate on what you're looking for. And it can, determine if you go somewhere or don't go somewhere. But then you do get the companies that unfortunately just get a lot of like bad PR for things that are out of their control. And I think that's really when you lean on your internal employees and who you have in-house to showcase more of all of the positive things that are happening. Yeah. So, having them go on there and leaving good reviews, just pushing out the bad ones, having them broadcast on social, what they love about their day-to-day. And even on their personal accounts, when I post on my story that, we all went out to the baseball game the other week, I had so many people be like, man, that's so cool that your office does that. And it's those little things that you don't think about because you become so accustomed to them, but that can really kind of push away like any negative or bad press that's surrounding the business or the company.
Yeah, so typically like on the marketing side, it's not about getting rid of it, it's about quote unquote burying it.
Yeah, hide it.
Hide it.
Yeah.
Move it up.
I mean, once it's on the internet, it's always going to be on the internet.
Right.
But I mean, you also could be like, is there really such thing as bad press? Is all press good press?
No.
I don't know. I mean, you could play with that, but it will always be out there.
Right.
But, you just hide it with a bunch of good information and good experiences and good stories.
Yeah, so that brings up, kind of a point for me because, you did share that Braves thing. You shared it on your personal accounts. Yeah,
I did.
Would have been nice to come from Liger, but that's okay. So as I am someone seeking a job or looking at a company, I probably need to be aware that that company might look at my stuff.
Exactly. Like I said, once it's online forever. And I think for a company who is maybe not attracting the ideal employee, or maybe they're just struggling to find employees that are applying for the job or whatever, put yourself in the candidate's shoes and vice versa. Candidate, put yourself in the employer's shoes. So if I'm an employer, how am I being perceived online? I think it's so great to switch the point of view because that really makes you step back and be like, this is how I'm being perceived.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, as an employer looking at themselves, being like, is this how I want to be interpreted online?
Right.
And then as a candidate, looking at, like, honestly, go to your Facebook page and click on your Facebook profile and scroll through and be like, is this what you want people to think of you? Because it's often viewed as like a negative thing. Like, I don't think employers should look at my personal social media, and I don't think that should be, a decision factor.
Right.
But I kind of look at it as I use my social media to broadcast the great things that I do. That sounded so conceited. But to showcase like my
you are the OG
my positive attributes. But I love to post, you look at this award that I just won, or look at this, family vacation that I went on. Like, I'm a real person too. And, as long as everything's appropriate, showcasing your day to day, I think, is very attractive to an employer to see if the fit's right, if the culture and would be a good vibe for both sides of the.
Yeah, that's an interesting. 'Cause you just made me kind of go down a talk track and think about it. I mean, specifically as a marketing company and or someone who's looking for marketing people, if they don't have some type of social media presence or aren't doing those types of things, it's probably not going to be a good fit.
Exactly.
It's also a good way to find, talent that may not be actively looking. So if you're on LinkedIn and you want to find somebody who's in a certain skill set.
Yeah.
So I do have a question for you, though. Let's kind of open up a topic we didn't know we were going to cover.
Okay.
So what do you think, or what's the opinion of companies that fire employees for things that they post on social media?
It's interesting. I think it's totally justifiable as long as it's something that's, if you post something inappropriate, you probably shouldn't have done that. I think a lot of time today, our social medias are so ingrained with our roles. As a salesperson, my prospects and even my clients have full access to my social media pages. And so I really shouldn't be posting anything that I wouldn't want someone in the business world to see. Now, if you have a very separate work life and home life situation, then I don't really think that an employer has the right to pull in. But nowadays with LinkedIn and when you have an uncommon name like Psinas, I just kind of have to expect that anything I put out there, people are going to see. So I think that employers are justified in that.
Yeah, I kind of look at it as, did it happen in company property on company time? Does it reflect somehow on the company versus it being a personal thing?
And right? I get that. I think it's.
I don't know if I'm right or wrong. I'm just saying.
Yeah, you make a good point. I think it's touchy because if I, post something that's a little, borderline inappropriate when I was in Mexico, it has nothing to do with Liger, but subconsciously I'm tied to Liger through the perception of people online.
Right.
So I think even if I don't mean it to come back and haunt the business, it naturally does. So I think it's something that people need to consider.
Yeah, it's such an interesting because, from an HR perspective, you always keep those things separate. You're not even supposed to ask somebody where they live because, Ingrid lives 5 hours from the office, right? So, but if she's willing to drive the 5 hours, we're not supposed to judge, right?
Exactly.
So but in this world of people knowing things and seeing and whatever, it becomes this blurred line. I always, when someone gets fired because they did something at the restaurant or they're obviously at the work site, but when they get fired because they did something on the weekend, that's where I'm always I think that company kind of went outside there.
You also can't have the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
I can't post about Liger on my personal page and then not want to associate myself with Liger on my personal page.
You have to make a choice.
You have to make a choice. Yeah. And if you as a employee make a hard line decision of what side you're going to fall on, it's probably a lot easier.
Yeah.
But it's common. We learned this in high school. Just don't put it online if you don't want it there forever.
I didn't learn it in high school.
What social medias were available to you?
That's what I'm saying. I didn't learn this in high school.
Exactly.
It's when you're writing a letter to your grandmother.
Yeah.
Make sure you put 2 stamps on the envelope. So, typewriter class. Yeah, and you were talking about one thing you keep using, Finsta?
Finsta, yeah. So it's kind of like a loophole to this whole situation.
Yeah.
Finsta is a fake Insta.
Got it.
So if you are trying to attract a well-rounded, wholesome employee, ask them if they have a Finsta.
And you don't have to tell them if you have one. But yeah, we found that we did a research project and we found a persona called Clubby Chloe. And Clubby Chloe had two Facebook pages.
Exactly.
So one was for grandma and one was for her friends.
Yeah.
And they were very different.
Very different.
Very different. But Clubby Chloe was always our way to introduce a vice brand. So if we were working with an alcohol or cigarette, tobacco, any of those kind of things, she was the persona that we were going to go to because she was going to be the one that was going to introduce us to the rest of her friends and things like that. So it was,
Absolutely.
We would ask to know because we're so by the way, do you happen to have a profile that maybe grandma doesn't know about?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's so marketing 101. know your audience
Yeah.
and you can market to the audience.
Right.
Know who you want as an employee, and you can make your job description very detailed on how to get directly to that employee.
Well, job description, but even potentially like where would they be hanging out? What would
Exactly.
they be posting? Those
Yeah,
types
like
of things.
I don't know if I would go to Indeed for a job posting. Like it is so flooded
Huh.
that I would look for who am I personally connected with.
Yeah.
You know, word of mouth. What one of my friends works at a company that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
You know, the horizons are getting so much more broad on where you can find employees, and I think that employers need to be a little bit more creative on their outreach, because just because you type up a nice little one-pager, like that does not get my attention. You know,
I love that was very much a Courtney Psinas thing.
It
that you
really
just
was.
said. Yeah, I like that. That's a great way to end that. So.
Perfect.
So you've been listening to The Claw. I've been talking today with Courtney Psinas. She is the OG of opportunity. I keep wanting to say that you're the OG of originality, which would be sort of like,
Hey, that's okay.
that's good too.
OG
That's not
for
what it is. Yeah,
originality.
the OG of opportunity here at Liger Partners. You've been listening to The Claw, which is the marketing podcast for C-suite executives. Please tune in next time.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Claw Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe, rate and review this podcast. And if you or someone you know wants to make an appearance on this show, email us at yourbestie@ligerpartners.com.